Yeah, that's one of the things that even in, from some of the religious, I say religious, that Christian based spiritual movement. So there's, or I guess we would call some type of Christian mystic, if you will. And so they're really big on a lot of different studies or science, even dealing with the paranormal or sound or consciousness, if you will, like really proving some of the things that they've believed throughout antiquity, right? Because some of the stuff is just passed down throughout the Bible or whatever, and many other holy books. And so it's like explaining a lot of the stuff, whether it is the afterlife or whether it is the power of sound and vibration and words and things like that. So I really I love those experiments, and whenever science and spirituality collide and it proves some of these things. And for me, I think that the paranormal and the psychic realms and some of these things, I feel like they prove the existence of an afterlife, right? Of something that continues. Now that's even fun to explore, whether that's just some type of record or an echo that's just there playing over and over because it was a traumatic death when someone encounters a ghost or something, if you will. But just to explore that for some, um, I feel like there's this big, I've been listening to a lot of Mike Tyson lately on his podcast, and he talks a lot about, many people just trying to make sense of death. And that's just what we're doing. We're trying to like prolong our death. I mean, the elite are literally trying to do it with all types of weird technologies and freezing their brains and pumping blood of young people, like taking their blood out and putting younger blood in them, like crazy far out stuff, putting machines in your head and becoming one with, robots and stuff like that. It's this inevitable escape of death, and maybe it's the fear of that consciousness dies versus the body dying. Like I'm okay with my body dying, but consciousness dying is scary, And so religion and all of these things kind of help us cope with it. Even again, the paranormal, the afterlife, the ayahuasca, the mushrooms. Hey, listen, I've been to where we're going when we die. I mean, I've said that and I feel that like off of, which has something to do with our consciousness, with the all, with the one. It doesn't, look like it does here, but I feel like we're trying to explain or escape, or we're just biding time for that, big transition with
Yeah,
death.
yeah, a lot of it
And it's okay to
is
identify that though, right? I mean, if it's not like you're weak for saying that you're still scared or have questions.
no. I mean, I've gone through phases of like different levels of certainty, different levels of confidence
Yeah,
in that idea. Even though I've got like, I've got all the mystical grounding, direct experience that you could
yeah,
possibly have or like need,
yeah,
and all the research at an academic book learning kind of level. But I still look at that critically and question everything, all the conclusions that I've reached, all of the whole viewpoint. But it's interesting. There's so many angles you can approach it from, and there's been a lot of some very very interesting experiments done on afterlife research by Gary Schwartz. I do mention this in my second book, which I'm working on, where the experiments were done with mediums, and it was partly predicated on mediums being accurate and actually having the abilities that they think they have. But the key to the experiment was that the discarnate entity was actually essentially running it. They were the key. If there was no discarnate intelligent entity, in the afterlife, whatever you want to, spirit, whatever you want to call it, then the experiment could not have succeeded. So they were relying on this theoretical or postulated being who is not physical to actually get this experiment to work. And they succeeded on repeatedly to get these experiments with mediums and communication working. So they were like double-blinded, triple-blinded experiments where the experimenters didn't know what was happening. The mediums didn't know what was happening. It was all about, if these spirits are real, that's the only way this experiment is going to work, if they're real and can communicate intelligently and understand what we're doing and participate in it in a dynamic, adaptive kind of way, so that they're not just an echo of the past. They're not just this thing that's being replayed mindlessly. It is actually an intelligence there. So, yeah, I mean, one of many interesting strands of research that supports the idea that consciousness survives. And, if you think of reality as a lucid dream, or as a psychological state. Like, people don't think of you and I sitting here talking, excuse me, they don't think of this as the experience of a particular kind of consciousness. This is a state of consciousness that we can interact in, and a state of consciousness in which the physical body and physical reality seems real, appears to be real. You know, I remember Robert Monroe made a very interesting statement in one of his books, which was, you know, he was the Western pioneer of the out-of-body experience. And one of the things he said as a result of his travels out of body was that, you know, in order to have this experience that we are having in a body, you have to first, as an entity, you have to agree that time and space actually exist, and then kind of insert yourself into it, into the video game, and then play along as one of the characters. So it's, you know, it's just perspective.